Hello, everybody, and now we're joined by Joe, an author and health activist and a personal friend of mine. Joe, how are you today? And welcome to the Gaming Enforcement Agency. How long have you been playing games for is my first question.
Oh, well, thanks so much for having me, Troy. Well, I've been playing games since I was probably 11 or 12 years old. And yeah, my first game was Pac-Man. I played it in Ukraine at an internet cafe, I believe it was.
The reason we've got you on GEA today is for your expertise with respect to the Ukrainian situation. Now, mate, just briefly, can you tell us your correlation or relationship with Ukraine, please?
Yes, absolutely, Troy. So I was born and brought up in Ukraine, and so of course this is this war touches me deeply on a personal level, but also family and friends because we still have in Ukraine as well. So yeah, it's a real personal thing for me. You know.
Excellent, mate. Now, the reason we've got you on here and your expertise in Ukraine is required is the recently released PC Gamer article highlighting that there was an update, the 2.0, the big 2.0 update for Cyberpunk, which is a fantastic update. But there was an issue that arose from the Ukrainian localization of that. Now, I read through the article, but I didn't really understand what was happening. On screen now, of course, you can see the graffiti in game, which CD Projekt Red has since apologized for and says they will remove from the game. But my question to you, Joe, is what are we looking at here in this image and what does it mean?
Yes, so Troy, so what we are looking at, and again, I don't know how I don't subscribe to the controversy behind it. What we're really looking at, we're looking at uh, what is, kind of a big Ukrainian coat of arms, that kind of trident looking thing. So that in itself is an image not controversial because it's official Ukrainian coat of arms. And right next to it in red is the sign of Crimean Tatars, which is an ethnic minority, a Muslim ethnic minority that lives in Crimea and have been living in Crimea for hundreds of years. And I believe that that is the symbol of their independence from oppression, which they've had, being part of Ukraine. And this is the symbol that they've also had for, I think, over 100 years. And so none of those symbols are controversial in any way at all, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, okay. And the way they're overlapping there in the graffiti, is that to sort of symbolize that they're a unified front in this issue?
Yes, 100%, because Crimea is a part of internationally recognized borders of Ukraine, where ethnic Tatars have been oppressed since Russian occupation, which took place in 2014. Crimea is a hugely important strategic part of Ukraine. It's kind of like the Queensland of Ukraine. It also is controls the access to Black Sea, which is again hugely important. And there's no way that this war can end without Ukraine liberating Crimea. And so that's I guess what this is really about. It's saying Crimea is Ukraine.
Okay. And then the second sort of issue that was flagged in the localization was that there were a few lines of dialogue that were changed. And the new line of dialogue, well, I should state originally the line of dialogue that's available worldwide in the 2.0 patch is couldn't all these assholes bite it out in the Badlands? And that has been switched for the Ukrainian version is couldn't all the Rashina bite it out in the Badlands? First off, how's my pronunciation? Second of all, what exactly does that mean?
So I would pronounce it as Rusnya. What does it mean? It is a bit of a derogatory term that's came up through the war. One of the other terms would have could have been like ox, right? Ukrainian calling Russian soldiers the ox, kind of referring to Lord of the Rings. So I don't think it's it is a derogatory term. It's not a swear word or any such like. I think in the context it came out in the context of the war, which I think is only natural, in my humble opinion.
Sure. Now, from more of a sort of global view, I suppose, Microsoft, once the Russian invasion started, Microsoft shut down the Russian storefront for Xbox. They can no longer buy games on the Xbox marketplace in Russia. As I understand it, what they're doing is using VPNs and tunneling into the Turkish store, and then they can buy online with their credit cards online. They can buy Xbox currency and then still get access to the Xbox marketplace in Russia via those means. Ukraine still has access to the store, and it's only that Ukraine store that is, seeing the graphic image signifying unity, I suppose, for the Ukraine, and then, as you've detailed, their allies. And then this dialogue is directly opposed to Russia. Now, that seems to me to be in line with Microsoft's policy of they don't support the invasion. As a result, they've taken down the marketplace. From my sort of naive standpoint, both the graffiti and the line seem to be in line with Microsoft's own policy. So, do you care to comment or make any speculation as to why, they shutting down the storefront there and saying we're against the invasion is fine, yet sort of imagery or spoken dialogue in one game title via a patch released in the Ukraine? It's not like it's released in Russia. It's, to the Ukraine version. Can you see any way that this would be offensive to anybody in the Ukraine seeing, the graffiti or, hearing those lines of dialogue? Does that make much sense?
It makes zero sense, Troy. I think it would be offensive to no person in Ukraine, and I think it's pretty tame. And to answer your other point, I think it's totally in line with Microsoft's own policy of, obviously being against the invasion. If you're against the invasion, then surely displaying Ukraine's national coat of arms is as innocent as you get. Support displaying the emblem of ethnic minority that is within international borders of Ukraine is also pretty tame by any standards. So, and using a slightly derogatory term towards the Russian occupation force inside Ukraine, again, no big deal in my opinion, and is totally in line with original policy that Microsoft has established. I think they have been probably scared of, perhaps, by all the shouts from the Russian regime, political regime, about Russophobia, about how Russians might be discriminated as part of this, and it's just a deliberate policy on their behalf to try and discredit anyone who speaks up against the Russian invasion of Ukraine.
Yeah, okay. So, in summary, it's inoffensive to the region it was deployed. The line is in no way controversial. It's not introducing any sort of new concepts, or it's not sort of, it doesn't appear, from my standpoint, to be sort of fanning any flames. So, I can't see anything wrong with it. I don't know why they would act this way and remove it. I guess my final question to you, Joe, then would be, do you think this should be reinstated? Like, should they walk back their apology and reinstate the graffiti and lines of dialogue?
Yes, 100% sure. I believe it should be reinstated. I believe that there's nothing to apologize for. And I think it's just totally in line. No one in Ukraine would be offended by it. And I think this is just a part of, your reality of what happens within the game, what just appeals to people's normal sense of well-being and their national identity. That is all.
Fair enough, mate. Thank you very much for joining us here on GEA today. Any final words, mate, before we go back to the regular show?
Yes, well, I would just want to express support for what you're doing. Thank you for raising this vital question because, I really believe that so often, there is controversy when there is none. And I really
Mm.
believe that there isn't any in this instance. So, thank you for GEA for your flagging this and putting this out there. I hope this is reversed because it has no grounds to stand on. Thank you for having me.
Fair enough, Joe. Thank you very much for joining us. If anybody wants to sort of dive into your online works any further, is there any website or anything you want to point them towards while you're here, mate?
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Troy. Well, I've got a podcast about healing from trauma, something that I've really connected with strongly since this invasion because it affected me deeply and brought up some deep wounds. And it's a podcast where I talk about my own healing journey and interviewing mental health on dealing with trauma. So anyone can check it out at powertobehappy.com. That's powertobehappy.com, or you check out your favorite podcast place wherever you go to check it out.
No worries at all. Great work, Joe. Thank you very much for joining us here on GEA. Now, back to the regular show. Oh, that was luck.
Hey, that's something.